Recording in progress. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are going to have some fun today. We're going to learn some HDR tricks, which is really cool. I'm excited to do this. So before we get started, I'm going to share my screen. And just a reminder, West Coast School's coming up June 5th through the 12th, 2022. And the Photoshop instructor 0 to 60 in a week is going to be none other than Michael Collins. And I do have a student in my class already, so it's okay for everybody else to sign up and not be the first one. We're going to learn a whole bunch in that class. So go to westcoastschool.com or ppconline.com to sign up, or you can call the office at 1-800-439-5839.
Extension 1.
Extension 1 or extension 1.
That's right.
Okay. I'm going to take off my share and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mel Carl, who is going to talk about HDR. And I'm excited to learn some more stuff. So here we go,
I don't
Mel.
know what you're going to learn. I think you may have tuned into the wrong one. Anyway, regarding HDR, we've had a couple people talk about or ask about it. So what I wanted to just basically show you is the different alternatives and options you have. There is an option for no matter what program you're using. If you're using Lightroom, you can do HDR within Lightroom. If you're using Photoshop, you can do it within Photoshop. Or you can use the external programs and you can do them and then still have the images come back into your catalogs accordingly. The method I use is Lightroom, and then I use the external program HDR Effects Pro from Nick. I've used it for probably 10 plus years, and I've just been most comfortable with the sliders and the tools that I have there. And I do presets and stuff like that within there based on what I do. My main usage for it is doing interiors for real estate. I shoot for a local magazine here, so most of my images that I do HDR are for real estate images. So I've kind of gotten away from using it for landscapes and such, just because I think with the various other programs are out there and a lot of the enhancements that both Lightroom and Photoshop have done, I don't find the need all that much to do landscapes with an HDR effect, because you can tell it's been HDR'd. And for landscapes, I'd rather not have that. I'd rather, if I have to, shoot multiple images and then do a little bit of masking and such if I need to. So that's kind of where I'm at on my landscape side. But for interiors, for the magazine that I shoot, we are not allowed to bring lights. It is an insurance reason. And so because of that, I absolutely have to do HDR in order, to not blow out every single window and not have, shadows that are just completely black. So in order to get an image that the magazine's happy with and I'm happy with, that, prints well, I have to do an HDR effect. So what I'm going to show you is a couple different versions, doing it through Lightroom, doing it where it just goes into Photoshop, and then the last one of doing it via the Nick Effect Pro, the HDR Effects Pro. Just to give you an idea, you can pretty much get to the same end product no matter which way you go. It's really a personal preference. And I'm sure there's other HDR programs out there where you could accomplish the same thing. So again, there's 10 different ways to get to the final product. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. So with that, I'm going to share screen here. And we're going to share that one. Okay, here we go. All right, so what you're seeing there is my Lightroom screen. I've got a living room here. I shoot 5 images that are one stop different. So you've got a normal exposure, you've got one exposure that's +1, one that's +2, and then I've got one that is -1 and -2. So I use the 5 shot HDR bracket that I use. I set the bracket up in the camera, so it's all pretty, you know, it's all really easy. I shoot everything aperture priority, and then I use the bracketing to give me the different exposures that I need. So with aperture priority, my aperture is going to stay exactly where I want it, and then I'm going to let the HDR different brackets adjust for my lighting to give me the different brackets that I need. So in this case here, we're going to take these first 5 images, and that's going to give me my different brackets here. And then if you right click, so this is where you can either, if you're in Lightroom, you can do an HDR right into Lightroom, or you can go into edit, go down to the very bottom, and here is your merge into HDR Pro in Photoshop. So you can do, you know, your different methods here, however you want. Or what I do is I just go edit, and I go right into, where to go? It's not there. Oh, I know what.
You're in edit.
Yeah, exactly. So if I go into develop now, if I go, I've got the 5 programs, edit. And
I think you want to go one lower, don't you? Photo merge or
no, it should be edit, and my HDR program's done. Oh, here we go. HDR. Well, okay, we can do it this way. So this is going to take me into Photoshop.
Which one was that again?
What's that?
You went edit to what?
HDR Pro in Photoshop. Okay, so what it does is it brings me up into Photoshop. You see it's going to load each of the images here. So now you've got all of the images in Photoshop here. And then the very last one is going to be your merge image.
So it creates its own layer then.
It creates its own layer, yes. And then from here, I need to get this out of the way. There we go. Now from here, I can you know, do your basic adjustments here, and then just basically, you know, so here if I want to do shadows more or less, I can adjust it. I can tone it. I can add exposure. You know, I can do all of these different adjustments here, and then just basically go okay. And now what it's going to do is it's going to merge all of these into what is basically going to be a HDR file. And let's get rid of that one. We don't need that. So that's one way of doing it via Photoshop. And then from here, you know, you could do a Command J, and then you could go back to Camera Raw. And now, let's see, you can now do your adjustments and such in Camera Raw. And why is it asking me questions here about Camera Raw? How do I get rid of that? This is the downside of having 2 screens. Can't see that message. Okay, there we go. So that's one way of doing that. So let's cancel out of Photoshop. Save. So I can take these same 5 images here and go right into HDR Pro Effects. Merge multiple.
Are you doing that from Lightroom?
I'm doing it right from Lightroom.
Oh, how did you get Nick to come up in Lightroom? I guess I need to figure that out. Never mind, I'll work on that.
You know what? That's That's the problem. My Lightroom is giving me what I want. So let's go here. Edit.
There's a bottom one, it says merge the HDR.
No, that's
Pro.
not the right one. Something's, oh, here we go. Let's do it, export here.
You had it the very first time you right click.
There we go. Okay, so this will take me into, so it'll take a minute here to, should, hopefully. Well, it's, okay, it's still processing. Okay, there it is.
So next filter is the program is the HDR Pro. It's in that.
Yeah, so here's the
software.
HDR Pro Effects 2. And so it's going to load it up into here.
You can also access this from Photoshop as well.
That's correct.
Okay. So I need to
Yeah.
update.
Yeah,
I
so
need to
if you
update
got-
that.
yeah. So then, so I just tell it, okay, here's my brackets, here's my thing. So I just say, create an HDR. Okay, so now it's going to load them in. So these are raw files that I'm bringing in, so that's why it's taking a little bit long. Okay, so here's my basic image here that's been merged. So now what I can do is I can either go into the presets here, and these are the presets that are done by Nick. So these are ones that come with the program. These are all the basic ones. Or I can go into down here to custom, and then these are the presets that I've actually already set up. So for me, this is going to be, let's see here. Where's my go-to living room? Right here. So here's my kind of standard one that I've already built a preset, or I've already just adjusted. And you've got all of these sliders over here you can adjust. You want to adjust the saturation? Fine. It shows it right away. You want to adjust the color temperature. I want to make this maybe a little cooler. It's maybe a little too warm. I can adjust it right here. So you have all of these adjustments right here. Highlights, say that window's too bright. I can drop the highlights down. You can see where the window goes, a little too much, it goes a little gray, but you can adjust your highlights here. I can adjust shadows. I want to open up the shadows a little more. So you have all of this, and then up here, you've got the various things of, how much of the HDR do you want to apply? So you've got depth. I usually try to keep it probably right about here. Detail, you can go all the way over to grunge, to all the way to, where it's a little soft. Again, I try to stay in the second one here that keeps it a little more realistic. Same thing with this last one, drama, to flat, which takes it all the way over. So you can go everywhere in between to get it to where you like. But I kind of like, this where I've got kind of this diagonal here of the settings that I use. You can go up here and you can tone it even more. And you can see it adjusts it accordingly. You can go less, which leaves you a little too bright, I found. So I usually try to keep it right around 40%. The method strength, I almost always leave it at 50 because it'll get way over the top if you go too much or not enough. So that's kind of where I use these. You could, with any Nick product, you can do a control point. And if you wanted to not have it affect the windows, or maybe there's a shadow somewhere or something you want to use or do, you do whatever you want. Then you just hit save. And now what it's going to do is it's going to save it right back into my Lightroom catalog. And
Say, Mel, can you bring in the greens more too in the background? I mean, does that have a slider for the trees?
Well, what I would do is then I would take it here into Lightroom, and now this is where I'll go in and fix it. So you said, which color didn't you like?
I said, can you bring out the greens more in the bushes?
Sure, I can take my green slider now in my HSLR here, my hue, saturation, and luminance area, and I can take greens and bring up the greens. And I can pop those greens even more in the background there, you know, outside, or I can take them down. See, now I can take it to 0. So this is where I would go in and adjust it after I've done the combining of the image.
Okay.
You know, I can still adjust the color temperature, you know, exposure. I can take the shadows up a little bit more. You know, I can give it a little more dehaze, which will bring it down. You know, I feel like maybe the yellows are a little much. I can drop my yellows. And now my walls are maybe a little truer to what I want. So this is why I do it this way. And, you know, you can do it the same thing in Photoshop, where once you've brought it back in, you can then go into Camera Raw or whatever and start adjusting or going in and, you know, adding a curves layer or what have you. But for me, Lightroom seems to give me the most flexibility of adjusting it once I'm done with my HDR. And you can, you know, and then I can just go back into my library, back into, let's see, which day was it? Here we go. And you can see right here is the image that's going to be with all of those that I had already done for that particular image.
So in all your rooms, you do a five shot.
I do a 5
exposure.
bracket for everything that I shoot. Yes. So if I go back into the next one, okay, let's take this bracket. So here's my 5 images. Just highlight them all, right click, and where did it go?
Export.
They changed this on me down here now.
You have to be in develop or no?
No, I'm in library mode and I can still take it and go right into, and I want to edit it with my Lightroom adjustments if I made any. So I can do it either from library or develop. It doesn't matter, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And we'll take a minute here. So you can see over here, it's showing you that it's processing. Okay, here's my brackets coming in.
While it's doing that, I have another question.
Far away.
If there was like a, you know how sometimes there can be like a tilt in the floor or some other wall or blah, blah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you do that after you combine them?
Yes, I will do that in Lightroom afterwards. Yeah, and I'll show you where I
It's
can.
kind of
go in.
off the topic, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I always do it after I've combined it because that way I don't have to copy it to all 5 images because I only want to work on the final one. So again, I'll go into my customs here and I'll say, okay, maybe this is the one I want. No, I don't like that. I like this one. You know, so I'll kind of play with all of my different presets and I'll pick the one that I like and I'll say, nah, I kind of like this brighter one. So I'll hit save.
I don't know why you'd want to use lights anyway. This looks beautiful.
That's kind of been my my feeling on it. Okay, so now I've got this. So now I can go into develop. And if I go into my my tool here, I could take my angle, you know, and make sure that these are straight, you know, which, you know, you can do that, or you can go down into lens correction form. Here we go. And I can say, okay, do an auto adjustment to see if it's off or not. Or I could adjust the verticals or whatever. So I do it, you know, in Lightroom. It's easier for me. And then like I look at this image and I'm saying, well, this might be a little bit dark down here. So maybe I want to open up the shadows a little more, you know, so you got a little bit of room there. Maybe the highlights are coming in a little much. You know, maybe the exposure. So this is the way I work in terms of my images for interiors and exteriors for that matter. So this is one way you can do it. Let's see, let's go back into here. Stars. So then if I go to another image, and let's do it here, and you can do a export. Let's see, where is it here?
Was that another right click you did that?
So here in Lightroom, I could do a photo merge right here, HDR within Lightroom. However, I don't, you know, I don't like the fact that I can't really do a lot of pre-adjustments that I think it's going to need beforehand. But it will align them here, maybe. I should have set these up as JPEGs as opposed to the RAWs.
Mel, when you do your pre-adjustments, do you just, I haven't done real estate in a while, but do you just click on them all and then you adjust them and then they adjust to
What
all?
I'll do is I will adjust the middle one and then copy the adjustments to the other images within
okay.
that bracket.
Okay, thanks.
Or if, for instance, the dark one is like too dark, I might just go in and just brighten just that one image up a bit. But see, so you can see here's the image that Lightroom did, and then here's the image that I did out of the HDR program. So you can kind of see there is a difference. You know, then from here I could go back in, and now within Lightroom I can go in and say, okay, well, this exposure's got to come up some. Maybe the highlights are down some. You know, so there's different things I can adjust here. But I just like the way that things ended up here using the HDR program versus what comes out of Lightroom itself. It's close, but I'm just, for what I do and my workflow, this just seems to work a little better for me.
Is there an advantage or a disadvantage of going from Lightroom into Nick or going from Lightroom into Photoshop and then into Nick?
I don't think so. I do it directly from Lightroom only because I know that it's going to put that image right back into my Lightroom catalog where I can find it with all of the other images for that bracket. It's going to put it right next to them. So for me, I do it that way. And then if I need something, you know, like say I look at this image that the HDR program did, and I want to go out and take something out from here, I can just go right into Photoshop. Shouldn't take too long because Photoshop's already open.
Was that another right click? You brought that
Yeah, I
up?
just right click and then go edit in Photoshop. So it brings it up in Photoshop. And then I'll just do a Command J to add a layer and say I want to take out this little guy here. So I'll just go, just for quickness, go to the healing brush, make it kind of big, and just get rid of that and say, okay, you know, I know it doesn't look right, but anyway, just there. And then just go File and hit Save. And now it's going to save that right back into my Lightroom catalog.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I use HDR, Lightroom, and Photoshop together. See, and now if I go back into Lightroom, here's the image coming in from Photoshop right here. And it's right next to where all the other images are. So here we are, and you can see this guy is gone now. Whereas here, it's still there. So that, you know, that's why I go from Lightroom into HDR and then into Photoshop if I need it. Because now what I've got is within Lightroom, I've got the before with the image here, and then I've got the after with it taken out. So if I decide that no, I really want it this way, I've still got it within my Lightroom catalog.
And does Mel, and so when you make that correction in Photoshop, when they say when it saves back into Lightroom, it places it right next to the
Right
image.
next to it. Yep.
Okay, so it's not at the
Here's,
end. Then.
here's the image that I started with, and then here's the one where it took it out. So yeah, it's right next to each other.
Okay, so you don't have to go searching for it.
You don't have to go searching for it. And
That's
you'll
good.
notice that on my original, I already had given it a flag, you know, as being that was an image I wanted to keep track of.
Right.
And it brings it back in. It automatically gives it a flag as well.
Oh, that's nice. Nice.
So that all stays with it.
Good. Thank you.
So
Mhm.
Mel, that's an actual copy. It's not a virtual copy.
It basically is a virtual copy. It is a TIFF coming back in from Photoshop, and you can see it right here. It tells you that it's a TIFF file. I still have all 5 of my original images that have not been touched because, you know, Lightroom with any of their adjustments is not, you know, harming or doing anything to the original images. So I've still got all my original images, plus I've got the first HDR TIFF that it created, and now I've got my Photoshop TIFF that even took it one step further. So I've got all of the images. You know, if I ever wanted to go back in and completely redo that bracket, I could, because I haven't done anything to lose those original 5 images.
Well, I was wondering about virtual copy because I'm wanting to make a copy that's
Okay.
not a virtual copy.
Here's my Photoshop TIFF. You just right click, create virtual copy, and now I've got another copy of that.
Yeah, I'm wanting to not create a virtual copy. I want to create an actual copy that I can move into a different file because you can't move virtual copies into different
Well, you
folders.
can move these TIFFs. You can move them.
So then it's not a virtual copy, it's a real copy.
Yeah, the TIFF is actually a hard file.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
And then, you know, I can also go back into library and go export, and now I can export it wherever I want to. Because what I'll do is I'll tag all of my images that were final, and then I'll highlight them all and export them out to JPEGs for the client. And I just do that all at once, put it into one folder on my desktop, send it to the client, and then move the folder off into a hard drive off my desktop when I'm done with it.
Say, Mel,
Yes.
can you show us how to create a preset that you have set up?
Sure. Okay, let's get another. Okay, let's go back to here. Okay, let's take this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Export. Okay, let's go into HDR. It's going to be ridiculously easy, Anthony.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll absolutely show you that. So it's creating into HDR now. Okay.
Michael, I did sign up for your class.
I do appreciate that. Thank you. Recruit some more people. We need more to go.
The check's in the mail.
Each month, Anthony.
Each month, yeah, each month. Yeah, Mel gave me a hell of a deal.
That's between you and Mel about the check being in the mail. I just want your butt in the seat.
Oh, hell, he told me to pull out my credit card and shut up. That's how I was told.
Okay, Anthony. So say I want to start here, but I'm not totally happy yet. So say from here, I want to take down the saturation and say I'm going to take this extreme. So I really want to fit, I want to adjust the tint and so I want to do this and I go, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So if I go up here to the custom and I hit this little plus button,
Yeah.
it will say enter the name, and I'll say
Anthony.
Tony Yellow. And I hit OK,
You guys are
and
killing
now
me.
it adds it right into my customs down at the bottom.
I'm sorry, Mel, where was that plus button at?
Right here, see where custom is?
Ah, got it. Okay, thank
Right
you.
there is the plus button.
Yeah, got it.
How did you get to the preset library?
And what it does, it puts it into my custom presets. And then if I hit the little star below it, okay, so now I've got the little star next to the name. And if I go up to preset library and go into my favorites, it's going to show up in my favorites on the top.
Oh,
So I
that's-
can have it show two different ways. I can have it show in my favorites, and then I can also have it in my customs.
okay. That's really easy.
To go back to Jean's question, I have an addendum to that. If you create a virtual copy and if you do anything to it, it becomes its own whatever, a JPEG or whatever you want it to be.
Well,
Isn't that-
it's gonna stay as a TIFF until I export it.
Okay, so it is a real copy,
It is a
It's not
real
just a-
copy, yes.
not just a virtual copy.
Because you're doing a virtual copy of a TIFF, what you're doing is you're creating another file that you can now do total adjustments to that as well. So you can technically have two different versions of the exact same file.
Right, but it's a
And you
real
decide
file.
which ones you want to export out of Lightroom to do whatever you want to do with it.
Right, and it has the same resolution and it's
Absolutely the
it's just
same.
like a file.
Yeah,
Right,
it's just like a file. Yeah, because once you create a hard file, you know, whether it's a, you know, because if I go, let's just cancel out of this and go back into, let's see here. Okay, there's the file, that one. Let's see where- that's one of these.
My point about virtual copies is you can't move them to different folders if they're a virtual copy. They have to be a different type of copy to move it to a different
With
folder.
Lightroom, Lightroom is not going to allow you to move stuff easily without losing it. So, you know, you've got to stay within the catalogs of Lightroom. Lightroom's kind of weird about that. That's why whenever I want to do something with it, I export it out of Lightroom. Okay. So from here, you know, I can sit there and go export, and I can decide whether I want to export it as a PSD, a TIFF, a DNG, or a JPEG. And then I can also set what quality, I can set the color space, and then up here I can say where I want to put it on my desktop. I can dictate where it goes.
You keep your quality at 75 or 80%?
For JPEGs, yes.
Okay,
But that's just for what this particular client requires.
okay,
They don't want huge files, but they want fairly decent files.
okay.
So for them, I just know that they want 75% sRGB, and that's just what I have set up for them.
Got it.
So that's kind of how I work within the Lightroom, Photoshop, and the HDR Effects Pro 2 program from Nick.
Okay.
Way cool. Thank you, Mel.
Sounds like I have to update my nits.
Even if you have Nick now, they charge $79 to update. So it's not a
Oh,
free,
okay.
not a free update.
Is that HDR Effects Pro part of the update?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay. That's
It's already,
$79.
if you have Color Effects Pro 4, I think it is, it's already in there. You just got to go look for it, and it's in the drop down for you.
Okay.
Cool. That was easy.
That was fun, Mel. Thanks.
Well, I hope that helped you, Anthony, because I know you're doing some of those interiors and that, and
Yeah.
that's, you know, but then again, you know, keep in mind, this is just the way I do it. I mean, there's other different ways to do it. There are some people that will take all 5 brackets and they'll merge those, and they'll, you know, do the masking and such, and letting each layer, you know, come up for certain things. And you know what, I kind of do this quick and simple, and you know, the workflow works for the client that I have that I use this most for.
Yeah, because I'm dealing with real estate people that, you know, they don't have furniture in the houses. They want to turn it and burn it and
Yep.
get it out the door. So I went in there and did a 5 bracket or a 3 bracket and tried to do the masking and all. And it was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not, you know, basically you're not making money because you're spending more time. Your
Yeah.
way is a lot more efficient and quick, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can go into a house, shoot it for an hour to an hour and a half, come back, process the images within 2 hours or so, and have, you know, the final images delivered to the client that night.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
So-
like their way.
because this way is, just quick enough. And I've got enough presets where I just find the one that works best for that particular location. And the only thing you really got to watch is your white balance. You got to watch your white balance to make sure that the color temp is going to look right, because if that's off, the whole image just looks weird.
Okay.
So you do want to make sure that you've got a good white balance. If I go into a house where it's just, each of the rooms are all over the place, I will then shoot a white balance target and then adjust everything before I do my HDRs.
Okay.
So that I know that the white balance is going to be within reason. And that happens every now and then. You get a room that's really, really yellow. And that's the biggest thing I have. And I can usually see that right off the bat going, oh, this is not going to be pretty.
So when
I'll
you do
shoot
that, do you actually shoot that white balance target in each room
Yes.
and rebalance?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'll have that target before that bracket, and I'll adjust it before I do the bracket, because then I know that target goes with these next 5 images.
Oh, you don't use a gray card for that? You usually use a white card?
I mean, it's a gray card, target, whatever you want to, I have a little one that folds up,
Yeah.
pops out, and, is a 18% gray.
Okay. I have the same thing. Okay.
You can use a passport color checker, the 3 color, black,
Yep.
gray, white card, whatever you use to color balance, be consistent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole thing, is be consistent.
That's exactly right.
When all else fails, do it right.
That's why I'm taking your class.
Again.
Again.
Get it in the camera so you don't have to deal with it later.
Amen.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
know it's an old-fashioned way to think, but that's the way to do it.
So true.
I don't know how many instructors at West Coast School pound that in your head. Get it in camera, which is the best way to do it.
Yep.
Well, cool. Thank you, everybody, for being here this week. I'm going to click off record real quick.